Hello, thanks for joining us on your channel of choice at this time, Africa Independent Television, AIT. Welcome to Focus Nigeria. My name is Benga Aruleba. It's the Friday edition of the program. The constitutional amendment process came full cycle on Thursday in the National Assembly, as it was the turn of the House of Representatives to vote on the 33 bills put together to capture the different proposals for the exercise. Just as we saw in the Senate on Wednesday, the lawmakers in the House were no better, as the proceedings witnessed a lot of childish pranks and display of unseriousness on very sensitive national issues, including issues that divide us. In addition to the shocking position of the Senate on 5 key areas, the honorable members added their own to it as they voted down the proposal to have an indigene of the FCT as a cabinet minister, probably in charge of the FCT, an issue that succeeded in the Senate on Wednesday. The House also voted down the proposal to abrogate the state independent electoral commissions, thus retaining the electoral control of states on the local councils, a departure from what happened in the Senate. But with the differences in some areas between the Senate and the House of Representatives, what happens now? Now, this is very crucial because in ordinary bills, if the Senate and the House of Representatives pass different versions of the same bill, a conference committee is called, and whatever decision is arrived at the conference committee is then taken separately back to the different plenaries and then passed. But then, a bill to amend the Constitution is not an ordinary bill, for so many reasons. First, it's the only bill on which numbers matter, which is why voting is done and results announced publicly. Because on every issue, every item put up for amendment, a particular threshold must be met. 2/3 of the total numbers in each of the 2 chambers, and 4/5 of some other issues. Another distinguishing feature of a bill to amend the Constitution is that the state houses of assembly must also vote on them, and the same 2/3 majority of membership in each house must pass a particular provision, and 2/3 of the 36 state houses of assembly must be recorded as saying yes to an issue before it then becomes passed. So it's a little complicated than the process of passage of ordinary bills, and so we need to understand the little complications here. Even though, yesterday, the Speaker, Dogara, tried to also explain all of this.
All the clauses, irrespective of the fact that some of them did not survive the vote at the Senate. Now, the reason is not that we will be able to revive them, but that it's good for the general public to know the position of the House on those matters completely. So we'll take a vote on all the clauses. But otherwise, in a bicameral legislature, any measure that dies in one house is automatically dead in the other house. But at least it's good for Nigerians, since this is a long, drawn-out process. It's good for our citizens to know the stand of the House on each of those issues. So we'll vote on everything.
All right, so the process has not fully ended yet in the National Assembly, even before we talk of the state. A clean copy of what is in will still need to be drafted. It's not clear whether this unique process will allow for any kind of harmonization of position between the House and the Senate, as I already pointed out earlier. And if it does, it then means that on these issues where you have divisions, the 2 chambers will still have to vote again after harmonization, because the wordings of the Constitution on process probably will require this. It looks like it's a mandatory requirement. Again, the critical issues on which the lawmakers have voted and acted curiously, how do we, as ordinary Nigerians, put them on the front burner of public discourse so that we understand what informed the positions of our lawmakers in the 2 chambers? Now, what is the role of the media in all of this? Because the media is the mouthpiece of the people. Our discussion today is along this line, and what a better time to have the kind of personality we have today as guests. Now, for years, the name Danladi Bako was a household one with television viewers as the pioneer anchorman of Morning Rise, a weekend breakfast show, and the first audience participation program on national television, the Nigerian Television Authority, that is. That was several decades ago. Now, Danladi Bako has since moved on to greater heights in public service. He joined the National Broadcasting Commission, NBC, one of the pioneer directing staff, rose to become the Director General, and from there, where he decided to throw his hat in the political ring, made an unsuccessful bid to be in the Senate. But God appointed instead as a commissioner in Sokoto State, Commissioner for Information. Today, Koguna Sokoto has not completely abandoned his first and primary constituency, that is the media. What role should the media be playing at this particular critical time in our national history, with the agitations for secession, for expulsion, for restructuring, and all of that? What role should the media be playing? What narratives should we, as members of the fourth estate of the realm, be setting? I'll be right back with the Koguna Sokoto after this short break.
Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to reduce the period within which the president or the governor of a state may authorize the withdrawal of money from the Consolidated Revenue Fund in the absence of an Appropriation Act from 6 months to 3 months and for related matters. Vote now. Vote now. The result is out. Abstain 0, no 0. So the ayes have it. This bill number 3, to be candid, anything we're doing here is just to tell Nigerians where our position is. So whether we're amending or not amending, I don't think it will change anything since it's felt in the Senate. So I don't think we should bother amending anything on bill number 3, except we want to waste our time. It's just for Nigerians to know where we stand as a house on those issues. Vote now. Vote now. Time is up. Honorable colleagues, the result is yes, I have 210, abstain 8, no, have 71. So the total garnered is 210. Unfortunately, it fell short. Honorable colleagues, bill number 4 is an act to alter the provisions of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to provide for funding of the House of Assembly of States directly from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the state and for related matters. Vote now. Financial autonomy for state assemblies. Vote now. The ayes have 286. 1 person abstain. We have 10 nays. So the ayes have it to abrogate the state's joint local government account and empower each local government council to maintain its own special account and make provisions for saving in the federation account before distribution to other levels of government and for related matters. So we'll vote on it now. Vote now. 5 seconds. 3 seconds. Time is up. The ayes have 281. 1 member abstain. The nays have 12. So the ayes haven't garnered more than 240. The ayes have it. Autonomy is an act to alter the provision of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, to strengthen local government administration in Nigeria and for related matters. For those of us who believe in true restructuring, this is where restructuring actually starts. We believe that this will empower people at the local level. if local governments are autonomous in this country. Vote now. Vote now. Time is out. Oh, you're lucky.
Only 7 voted against. So we have 285.
For nays, we have 7. And if we were to print any report of voting to circulate, this cannot be one. This cannot be one of them. So this tells us how independent this chamber is. The ayes having gotten 285 have passed the threshold of 240, and the ayes have it. Bill number 7, which is state creation and boundary adjustment. Vote now. Vote now. The ayes have 166. 3 persons abstain. The nays have 125. So it appears that on this issue we have voted alongside the Senate, and the ayes, having failed to garner 288 votes as required by the Constitution. We're just doing it so that the public will know where we stand on those issues. Not that they can actually be resurrected. They are already dead. Except they resurrect them in the Senate, we can't do anything. Even if we pass it here, it goes to no issue. So, appointment of ministers from FCT. The nays have it. Immunity for members of legislature. Vote now. Time is out. 1 member abstained, 10 members voted no.
Right, if you're just joining us right about this time, a very warm welcome to you. It's a very august day here. What a time to have with me as my guest. This is my very big Oga, the one who kept me on my toes for several years in the NBC. I can't forget those years. Malam Danladi Bako, officer of the Order of the Niger OON, Koguna Sokoto, former Director General, National Broadcasting Commission, former Commissioner for Information, Sokoto State from 2012 to 2015. He joins us for today's conversation. A very warm welcome to you.
Thank you very much, Benga, and I'm delighted to be here. As you do know, we've tried so many times to get on Focus Nigeria. I mean, you and I have just never been able to fix a date. So after, at long last, I am here, and I'm delighted to be here. And it just tells you that after all these years you have done Focus Nigeria, the fire is still there. And for me to still remain interested for all those years and to now show up today means that you're doing a good job.
Thank you so much, sir. We really appreciate all those attempts to keep us focused and keep us on our toes as well, to ensure that we do the right thing. Thank you so very much. You played a very great role in molding this program, really, by your very constructive interventions most of the time.
Thank you.
So what are you up to now? I know that you are still playing politics, but then politics cannot be a full-time game or business for you.
Of course, quite clearly not. As technocrats, media consultants, you're there, you're members of all sorts of parastatals, director in 1 or 2 major parastatals. You're also there. After approaching just a few months to 60 years, you're an advisor. You're approaching elder statesman age, when you're 70, thereabouts. So you slow down, you consult, you advise, you mentor. A lot of all that is taking place. And I'm also a student. We'll come to that later. I'm still in school.
Very interesting.
Challenges, you get sometimes areas you want to be able to create interventions to inspire people. you want to achieve certain fulfilling dreams and pet projects you have. I still intend to write books at some point, to put memoirs together. I still intend to mentor so many more people beyond what I've mentored. You just gave a testimony now how my inputs have helped to make those days. And I remember way back, as far back as 1994, from Victoria Land, Danladi, the driver, will take a 505 to take me to Alagbado to go and sit down with Chief Raymond Dokbesi, Alaji Arbelo, Tony Uya, Sheson Kishola, to plan how to get Ray Power. A lot of people don't know that even before Ray Papa went on air, people like us were there every night. We'll come in at 9 p.m. and stay till morning planning. So I do that for a lot of people. And most of those that I also gave, I had the privilege to issue licenses to as Director General of NBC. I still monitor some of them, make inputs, advice, because if they fail, then it will mean that those that I tried to encourage into the industry did not have the requisite capacity. So it's in my interest also to make sure that the industry grows and grows well along the lines that can be progressive and developmental. So I still I find time to do all of those things along with other chores. But remember also, once you are a member of a larger family, up till 2015, I was chairman media and publicity for the gubernatorial election and presidential election in Sokoto. 2006, I was not chairman media and publicity for PDP Northwest. So all those chains and connections are still there. And here and there, every time there's got to be some form of activity, mobilizing more people, drafting more people, taking decisions about the party, making inputs at the elders level at the party, being able to project what will happen in the next 2 years, and that kind of mobilization and strategic planning. We consult regularly and we do a lot of work backstage. You don't see the effect until the primaries are coming. You don't see the effect until elections are at hand. So all those things, you know, besides also by my title and by my capacity, I also do a few things
going to come to that.
The royal
exactly.
house.
How do you play politics without compromising that?
It has to do with a lot of brinksmanship. It has to do with skills. It has to do with understanding what is good, what is in the national interest, what is in the people's interest, what is in the, most of the time, what the royalty or the houses of traditional rulers do have to do basically with social justice. And every time you have things like social justice, egalitarianism and equity, whether it's at the national level or at the royal level or at the domestic level, they all sync. If once the truth is always the truth. Benga, what is consciously true is always consciously true. So it permeates from your home to the larger nuclear family, to the traditional rulership, to your community, and up to the national level. So the moment you have imbibed that at home, you carry on those duties. And a good man is always a good man.
That's correct.
A good man is always a good man. You have survived all these years because of your clarity of mind, and you know what you want to do to make journalism add value to the development of Nigeria. Bottom line, every other thing is an appendage. We also know that for us to have peace, tranquility, and national development in a country like this, everybody needs to make his inputs. So the ideals of such traditional structures are there. They always align with that of the national structure. But most of the time as well, you need to be able to push it along the positive lines to be able to create a wider sense of peace and tranquility in a country. Where there's a disconnect at any of those levels between the traditional system and the national government, disconnect between the traditional system and society, disconnect with you have crisis. So you can say people are demonstrating because they don't want one kind of traditional ruler, you know, you can, all those kinds of things are those little disconnects. But leadership is about being able to steer the ship. You will have a little fractures and a little things, but you always, so maintaining that, as I said, haven't run through NTA all my years, haven't run through NBC, leadership and governance is key. And you just need to have a clear mind. You have the capacity to accommodate other people as much as possible and tolerate people as much as possible and continue, and you give your advices where necessary.
As Kokunan, it means advisor to
Many things, many things within the system.
Well, what the meaning of the royal title?
Essentially, everything that has to do with the rivers and the streams and the rivulets. In those days, some 200 years thereabouts ago, the Magajin Rafi takes care of certain items that relate to the water and the wells and the streams. The Koguna also is in charge of all of those things that have to be. And as you do know, water is life. You literally superintend. I don't want to say control. You superintend over the rivers. Remember, Kogi is water, is river, and all the rivers around the caliphate. And remember, the caliphate comes right from Niger, Burkina Faso, right up to Cameroon. So we're not even just talking about Kogun and
of Sokoto in Nigeria.
Yes, of Sokoto in Nigeria. We're talking about Sokoto. We're talking of the caliphate ranging from everywhere. The
across like 4 other African countries.
Absolutely. And but principally, every traditional ruler, as an emir or a sultan, has the capacity to deploy you in whatever way he deems fit. The primary duties are there, but as we do say in government, and any other duties as assigned. So you can find, in a government, you can find a chief security officer that is more powerful than a minister.
That's correct.
You can find a chief of staff that is more powerful than
the deputy,
than the vice
or the vice president.
Likewise, you can have a sultan that decides that the Tafida, the Sadauna, the Turaki, the Koguna, the Serkin Fada can be assigned certain roles that gives them certain preeminence ahead of all the others. It is discretion.
All right. Looking back, how will you rate the media in Nigeria now? I'm looking at the growth from your days in television up onto now. The days when you could only probably access a television station through one landline, to today when you could actually run a television station sitting down in your room. What do they call it now? Satellite television and all those kind of things. How do you think the media in Nigeria has come? Has it come of age? Really?
Yes, quite clearly. Anything to the contrary anybody says is immaterial. The bottom line is the facts show that the statistics and the developmental, parameters you can use show that the media has grown astronomically, the print media, the electronic media, and now the social media. Once upon a time, 1867, we're talking about the first newspaper, Iwe Irohin, by, in Abeokuta somewhere, by, a British explorer. Up to the point where we had redivision boxes in 1932, where we just get a box and you connect it to Nitel line or post and P&T line to get the sound of BBC on your redivision box. Then up to when the first 1959, when WMBS started. Then up to when all the others won 62, 67, Kaduna, Enugu, the regions had their stations. Yeah. Now, then up to when all of us here would wake up and we'll be waiting for television, and it's only at 4 o'clock that you see color bars. Yeah. I'm talking as late as 19, 60. Yeah. Exactly. So the children of today have no idea what happened at that time. We all sit in front of the TV at 4 o'clock waiting for the color bars.
Wake up with the TV, with the color bars.
They want color bars first, and then an announcer, a female or male announcer, pops up and say, "This is NTA." After the national anthem and opening prayer and all that stuff. Now all that has moved to the level where government deregulated broadcasting in 1992. One of the few things that General Babangida did very well in 1992, and that communications was one of the first recipients of a private radio. And Ray Power started, and for about 5 years it literally dominated and set the pace. Now today, by 1999, when I was Director General of NBC, we had multiplied most of those radio stations to literally every part of this country. And in fact, President Obasanjo literally approved that there must be a radio station or a TV station in every 100 kilometers. That was how it manifested in the NTA having 3 stations per state. So you had NTA in Argungu, you had NTA in Igweben, Iruepen, you know, and, you know, Abakaliki, outside Afipo, you know, you had NTA in all of those areas because there was a policy to try to reach the populace. Now, remember that those days, the radio will come on and you couldn't talk to the radio. It's whatever I said you believe.
Yeah.
Today, we have come to the point where Benga will sit down here. In fact, all the programs you did before now on radio, once in a while you used to do radio programs as much as possible.
Yeah.
You got feedback, the audience. So the huge level of democratization of the airspace and liberalization of the airspace has allowed the participatory capacity of the electorate, the populace, the citizenry to give a feedback. Major. That's the major contribution broadcasting has done in the last 10 years. And you know yourself now that way back, during the military regimes, government comes, there's a decree. I personally recorded and transmitted all the IMF debates, all of the presidential broadcast in Dodam Barracks. It was me that was sent to Dodam Barracks to do the recordings and transmit. October 1, whatever. I did all those recordings and transmitted. You know, the president will speak, national anthem, you know. Today, what you have is, as soon as the president is speaking and is finishes speaking, phone calls will be bombarding. In fact, the phone calls and the ideas and the plurality of ideas and inputs from the audience has improved democracy, has put people on their toes, has made sure that the voice of the people are heard. So one of the greatest contributions of the media to democracy is the opening up of the space for input from the audience.
But has it made the job of the journalist much more difficult? Because those days, even when you were seeing the ABC, it was a constant argument between you, the regulator, and those of us who regulate, as to whether the journalist can afford to have an opinion on any issue, or is simply to report what people say to the audience without having any opinion of it.
The journalist can have an opinion, but he must state that this is an opinion. As we speak today, later today, you can tune VOA, you will hear the opinion of the United States government on an issue. The journalist can get to a program where you can opinionate. But you must make it clear that this is your opinion. Now, at that same time, it's always advisable, ask the audience to now reply you. And the audience will now take you on. Then, at the end of that 30 minutes or 1 hour, you realize that your opinion has either been deconstructed, deflated, decimated, or otherwise. Or it might be upheld and say, Benga, today's idea of what you think. Somebody says to you, Benga, please assess the capacity and performance of the APC government in 2 years. You did not attack them during the pre-election periods. You were neutral, you were okay, but today, what is your assessment? And Benga says, it's too early. We're 2 years into the program. Then somebody calls in and says, Benga, are you sure 2 years is not enough for somebody? After all, Murtala Muhammad did so in 9 months. Abdul Salam did so in 9. So they begin to take you on. So it doesn't even require the government to reply you. The viewers will reply you. It's that cross-fertilization of ideas that makes the job of the journalist very delicate now. So even when you opinionate, remember that the viewers are there to listen and criticize you. So in some of those cases, you don't even need a government spokesman because the viewers will take you on. The listeners will take you on. But as long as you are saying the truth and you believe that everything must be substantiated, if you're going to substantiate the facts, you will say, okay, why I said the government has not done XYZ in 2 years is because we take a comparative analysis of Obasanjo regime, 1999 to 2001. Take that period. How much did he get? What did he do? Take the Yar'Adua regime from 2007 to 2009. So do a comparative analysis of the first 2 years of 4 regimes. Then you can draw conclusions and see. Then also they might tell you, okay, the military regimes, Murtala and Abdul Salam, they were military regimes, so they could rule by decree and they could create states. So yes, so that was a different. But in those ways, the moment you can substantiate your facts, then your job is easier because the media will not take you as being biased or being prejudiced. Then the moment you can prove that you are clear-minded with facts, half of the job is done. Now, the challenge today is the, how do I say, the death or the bypassing of the gatekeeper. by the social media. Because you and I know what journalism and gatekeeping means. And all the laws have been broken because of social media. They don't have gates, talk less of the keepers of the gate. So that's the challenge. Benga can say something now and somebody can reproduce what you said in a way that you didn't infer or mean and put it on social media and say you said so. Now, to what levels do our laws of slander, libel, etc. effectively handle this kind of things? Those are the challenges. And regulating the social media has become a challenge.
Has that put some kind of tremendous pressure on the media as well to perform? Because for you, the traditional media, you are trying to balance all the facts, get the facts and all of that, weigh all of the options, be conscious of what the gatekeeper will say, observe all the gatekeeping rules and all of that. But the social media doesn't, like you said, doesn't have anybody keeping any gate. It doesn't even have any gate.
Absolutely.
It gets it, has one or two prejudices of his own to it, and bam, it bangs it there. And while you are still trying to observe the rules, the other media is already out there informing and misinforming. Has the media buckled under that pressure?
Let us look at what happened in the American elections. The presidential candidates, President Donald Trump as a candidate started I won't say hate speeches yet, but he was pretty negative. When you call a colleague presidential candidate crooked. It's derogatory. But they carried on, and all of a sudden, because the media was, and all of a sudden it turned out that he won the election, and as if to say you have rubber-stamped those vile, vitriolic language he was using. Because if somebody gets away with all of that and wins an election, then it puts the media under pressure that who is regulating such things. Now, it suddenly puts Nigeria under a lot of scrutiny too, especially considering that pre-2015 election, most of the media houses were guilty. They took transmission of live rallies. APC and PDP were all guilty of outrageous comments in rallies. Outrageous comments. Outrageous, claims during rallies of political rallies and a lot of hate stuff. But I think to a large extent, one of the good things that happened, a little later, sometime earlier this year and last year, DAC Communications actually did a retraction and an apology, which is the ideal thing to do. We all make mistakes, and I was very proud that you had the humility and accept that when things are done wrongly, it set a pace, it set a standard that things can be done wrongly, but also you can also repair. But again, it just tells you that in news or in the media and transmission of live materials, decision-making. The decision to carry a live program from Sokoto, from Abakaliki, from Okitipupa rally, and you cannot predict what the candidates will say. They always try to delay broadcasts or record and keep, but because they will get more money, 15 million to do a live, if you delay, the money that will come in will be 7 million. Yeah. So the tendency to want to accept. So the media has put itself at the firing range. And ditto for the newspapers. Today, I don't think there's any newspaper that sells 200,000 copies. Forget about all their... They all younger... No newspapers print run. No newspaper has a print run of 250,000. None. So you ask yourself, do people really read newspapers? If they don't, then what is the essence? And does the media still have an impact? If only 50,000 copies of a newspaper are printed,
and you carry a wraparound that is blasphemous or actionable.
Absolutely. Now, you now say to yourself, what do you do with that receiving public, that target audience? Do they consume this and believe it? Now, our challenge is, do the people who read the social media, how much of it do they believe? And how much of it comes as rumor? After the people that have access to the internet now tell their little people in the village, they're coming back from one school lesson, or they're coming back from one event, or one town hall meeting, and they say, did you hear that? This person, so, and so. That's rumor. And because we have a capacity and penchant and propensity for rumor mongering, that rumor goes on. Meanwhile, the gentleman who carried that story has added versions, salt, pepper, Maggi, down the line. So you that brought the first story have lost control of the final product. How do we manage those things to find that our stream of information that gets to the roots through the chain, how do we ensure that it doesn't get over-colorated or over-polluted, adulterated? Now, those are the challenges, and those are the things that the NUJ, the MBC, both the participatory, functional, professional groups, as well as the regulator, must sit back and do, because it's dangerous. Remember, you and I were in this country one hell of a morning. Somebody said that Ebony magazine carried a story, and there was riot in this country. Do you remember?
I remember.
It was from a story.
I remember.
And we were all sitting down here, and we started searching for Ebony magazine. Where's the story?
It wasn't there.
And there was no story.
No such story.
So the capacity of the media, from the National Nigerian Guild of Editors, NUJ, to be able to help move, if the conventional media retains a sanity level, then its credibility will rise. Then every time you read something on the social media, you'll ask, what did the NUJ say about this? What did the NGE say about this? What are the traditional media saying about this? Until then. But I think for now, there's some level of caution as well.
I'm just wondering the level of control all of those professional bodies have on somebody who you don't even know. But simply because he has an Android-powered phone and he has data on his phone, he sits down in a corner of one village where you don't even know.
True.
But because you are interconnected, it's a global village, he put something on there on the space.
How many weeks ago did somebody say?
How will the NUJ that is in Abuja, for instance, be able to?
How many weeks ago did the governor of Anambra State was busy battling to explain that there was a truckload? So he said there was a truckload of arms from somewhere.
Yes.
And you will hear a rumor that there are dead bodies from some part of the country. That are heading back. Rumors. So unless we raise our game as journalists, then put it at the point where we don't need to do what President Donald Trump has done to say fake news, fake news, fake news. We don't need to, we don't even need to acknowledge that. We don't need to scream fake news all over the place. What we need to do is to raise our game that the credibility gap between us and the social media will be so wide that everything they hear from the social media, they would love to hear what the conventional media are saying. Isn't
the only way the conventional media can do that is by opinionating? In other words, if you also read the responsibility that the Constitution has placed on the media to hold government accountable to the people, it demands a higher level of reportage, which is that the Constitution already presumes that you know what is good as against what is wrong. And so when government is doing what is wrong, and you are holding government accountable to the people, it's a kind of opinionating.
Of course, quite clearly, to a large extent, yes, because there are benchmarks, there are thresholds. The moment they've fallen below that, whatever you say thereafter becomes an opinion, because you have set those parameters and those templates that the government must do X, Y, Z. Somebody says to you, what are the three cardinal points or selling points of the agenda of the APC government? Security, economy. Then you say to yourself, in 2 years, what have they done as regards these three items? Forget the other things. What have they done? And apparently in this situation, you're not going into the anchor borrower scheme that has produced rice that is done from Kebbi to Lagos yet, because that's an aside. Because the main issue did not come as agriculture. The major issue were these three. Now, you have a right to, at that level, begin to opinionate that this is what. And let me tell you, if you don't, the social media will opinionate for you ahead of you.
And probably send the wrong narrative.
And probably send the wrong narrative. So two things happen here. The government itself must make itself proactive, accountable first. If you don't, the main reason rumor spreads is because you have hoarded information. That's the first reason. If you don't hoard information, then rumor becomes, rife. But if at every point you send information out, when the theater commander of Boko Haram started doing a weekly briefing, Operation Lafia Dole, Irabo, Major General Irabo was doing a weekly briefing. He preempted rumors. When they had a radio station, Armed Forces Radio, preempted rumors. At every point, the moment you keep quiet. And that's why I think the President of America has chosen to be tweeting himself, so that before the rumors start, he will tweet and tell the world what his views are on certain things. We need to be more liberal with information so that those who spread the rumors don't. And thereafter, the gap between the media, the fourth estate of the rim, and the other three rims must be closer. The moment you sit down there, you believe you are the executive, I am the Chief Justice of Nigeria, or I'm the Senate President, or I'm the President of Nigeria. These are just media people. That derogatory attitude, condescending attitude, and your highfalutin posture makes them say, okay, we'll ambush you. And it's a primordial thing. It doesn't come consciously. Sometimes even when they don't do it, they just say, and you hear a lot of pressmen say, this one is arrogant. This one, they've already formed an opinion how they will treat your stories. So even without some of these things don't appear in any textbook. Whatever they teach you in the university, when you come out on the road, you get an impression.
A different kettle of fish.
Benga, they send you to the National Assembly to go and interview the President of the Senate. And when you get there, you interview Jacob Zuma, literally 48 hours after he was sworn. Jacob Zuma, the President of South Africa, you interviewed him. You got an interview 48 hours. If you try interviewing a Nigerian governor, it might take you 1 week, and you'll ask yourself, here was I. And he said, Danladi Bako, please go on. And during morning ride, I will have 4 governors waiting to appear on morning ride. 4. Line up. I'll have 5 ministers queuing up to appear on morning ride. So if the moment you try to do that and somebody fends you off and keeps you for 2 weeks, you cannot get an interview. The next time you get that interview, you're going to be a little nasty in a nice way. If you're not unforgiving, in fact, but these are little things that come out with reports. And, the public does not realize that being open to the media helps their cause. So a lot of the time when you find all these crises, and somebody will say, they don't like me. Sahara reporters don't like me. AIT don't like me. I say, how can you say AIT? How can you say that communications don't like you? That is an institution. They cannot collectively, from the MD right down and say they don't like you. No. Do your work. Do your work. And the moment you do your work, so the onus is on first, the government appointee. Wenga, if you go today now to go to your state and ask all the commissioners that we want to interview each one of them, 15, 16, 23 of them. Some of them will nicely run away because they cannot even, they'll be scared. Oyibo Benga is too strong. He will confuse me. They will say, Benga doesn't like me because of the way he treats, or Benga doesn't like the governor. So there's a prejudice already.
There are some government officials who want to interview. Their aides are the one who will be telling them, that's enemy territory. Don't go there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So all those prejudices on the part of the government appointee, we must break that down. On the part of the prejudices from the media, we must break that down. Unless we break down all those barriers, the job won't flow.
All right. The times we are in are actually very sensitive time in the life of the nation. At a time when the clamor for restructuring is so high, secession is bid again, one group of you saying, no, we have suddenly realized that you don't belong here, you must pack and go, and all of that. It's a kind of national emergency. Let's try to carve out the role of the media in all of this, in setting the right narratives on all of these issues that bring friction among us as a people.
Thank you, Benga. LTV and Muri do, and in fact, indeed, AIT has Hausa programs that they do. Even in Lagos, you will find Hausa programs. If you go to 1 or 2 private stations in Sokoto, you will find a Yoruba program at 8 p.m. on Thursdays.
Okay.
You know, there has to be that cross-fertilization of ideas. People who live wherever, an Igbo man or a man from Ikorabasi or from Okitipupa should be able to go to Vandekia or Konshisha local government and stay there, or Obadigbo, and stay there and hear and feel like a Nigerian.
Be at home.
Be at home. It helps with the media. If today your daughter or son is posted to Jigawa and she goes to Megatari, and they say, she asks, is there no radio station? I want to just hear the news and hear what is happening. And the radio station transmits 48 hours, 24 hours in Hausa or in full day or in... She's shut out. So the media has a role to be more integrative than they are now. All the media we have, both print, electronic, and everything, should dedicate space for the minorities that live within those areas. If you are living in Ijeburemo and there are radio stations there, and you were a lover of radio or a lover of TV, and you have a TV set and you are lost, or they say, Benga, come and go to Akingari in Kebbi State. You go there, and for 3 days you are sitting down there, and you are shut out because all the information is about that locality. So we need to begin to able to integrate more of the rest of Nigeria, conscious effort to make sure that other Nigerians that live within our territories have space to ventilate. And the media must make that effort to try to, especially electronic, must try to provide space for them to ventilate so that they can have their opinions once in, even if it's a simple request program. A simple request program. You are sitting down in Focados or Bifurcation or any of the places in Delta, or Isiala Ngwa. You should be able to have a way to access the media. Even if you don't have data on your phone, buy a small transistor radio, 12 band. So you find somebody, a Hausa man in Shangisha, is opening his radio. He wants to hear BBC Hausa service because the local radio is not
catering to his need.
The same thing with an Igbo man that is sitting in the Jibia, 50 kilometers to the border of Niger in Katsina. He will go and try to get Radio Biafra because the local station is not
ministering to his need.
So, and nobody bothers to make conscious effort to. So the media needs to work together to try to make sure that, because it could be any of you. Your brother could be a soldier and posted to anywhere. Your wife could be working in civil service, and they say, go and be director in Iseleuku or Ibuzo in Delta State, and she's the director of immigration or something. How does she relate with the people there? So we need to open up our communities more, open up our radio more, and stop treating people. It trails from the society. The society just says, this one is Nyamri, this one is Bereva, this one is Malam. So this Malam's job is principally Megadi. So he has no use apart from being Shushaina and Megadi. The chemist is the Igbo man. Yes, so they sideline him. So when there are issues, and that now gets reflected in the media, because the media also take off from where the society has, the templates the society has created. But as agenda setters, the media should now take the role of setting the agenda, of elevating these smaller groups, minorities, to the center table of any discourse within those communities.
All right, let's spend the last few minutes left to discuss current national issues now. The agitation for restructuring has been very high. Started in very muted tune, but today it's going so loud. A lot of people had thought that the opportunity of the ongoing constitutional amendment process in the National Assembly offers us the best peaceful chance of addressing some of these issues. But we seem to have thrown most of that away by what has been happening over the last 2 days in the National Assembly. First, we saw it in the Senate, and then yesterday we saw it in the House of Representatives.
I think that restructuring in whatever form the argument continues day in, day out as to what exact kind of restructuring we're talking about, political, economic, social. federating units and all that. But for me, the poverty levels and the poor quality of leadership is a key major problem. Whatever we restructure, if people have a tendency, a penchant, a propensity to bypass the constitution, to disrespect court orders, and to break the law with impunity, we're going to go back to square one. Whatever it is, just take it that we have no discipline to be able to do the things that are right. We have no discipline to be able to follow the laws of the land. We have no, people will look for the shortest possible means to breach those constitutions. That is why we sit down here. We have, what's the name of the ACJA? The new
Administration of
Criminal Justice Law. Even then, lawyers are still sabotaging all of that. Senior lawyers are still creating problems. Benga, you have cases where Supreme Court cases that are still in the Supreme Court for 15 years. You have cases where, so is it the function of the laws? We have no desire on our own part to obey laws. So for us, I don't think there's any problem with structuring as long as we know what we want to do. I don't think there's so much of a problem. What those who want states want to do, if you give them states, maybe the fundamental issues about whether the population and revenue allocation formula is based on population, land mass, and all those things need to be discussed. But quite clearly, I am one of few that think that Lagos with 22 million people cannot have 20 states, and my Kano, 20 local governments, and my Kano has 44. To that extent, I understand and I agree that certain things need to be fine-tuned, But again, you will ask yourself, at what level and where do we stop? How far can we go with breaking up of all of these things and restructuring these things? Because as it is, as we speak, some of those things will not pass through because those who are in charge will not allow them pass through. All of what we're saying now will still go to the states. The governors control those states. Some of those people that are in charge of those House of Assembly members will ensure that some of these things get stuck.
The media is caught in the
media is caught, exactly.
What should we as media practitioners be doing?
Stand for the truth.
Without necessarily also putting petrol in that fire of controversy.
Stand for the truth. You know, as I said severally, the basic issue of things like restructuring can only happen if after, as it happened with the case of creating Midwest, creating 12 states, creating 19 states, creating 36 states. The other day, Middle Belt say we should have 54 states. Of course, some of these things are not practicable. They are not. I don't think that you can have 54 states. Benga, every state needs to begin to look at its resources and develop them and not rely on the federal government. We need to work. We need to eradicate poverty first. Make people go back and try to see what we can do. Fortunately, they're all taken up to farming now. Kebbi State has shown that they can grow rice. Kano has started and make good money from it. Every state needs to do that. For me, that is key. For me, it's so key that you begin to, the moment you begin to get more money from agriculture and other things, then you begin to think less about. So whatever happens, I am for reducing what the federal government has as 51%. When I was talking about economic restructuring, federal government should reduce to about 40%. You increase that of states to about revenue allocation. You understand? Those structuring. But if you talk about general restructuring, we're talking about so many, 600 items from the National Confab. We're talking about 32 bills from the National Assembly. Each one of them is contentious. Some of them will create continuous arguments. All right. But we need a better country. And for us to get up as a country, we must have a desire to build a better country. Right now, people are looking at their tribal little cleavages and fiefdoms and trying to build their own little empires. And those empires are the ones that
where they will be fiefs.
Absolutely.
Adebayo Samuel says, Benga, thanks for bringing this great man. He is very knowledgeable about Nigeria, and I think we need more of such to move on. That's Adebayo Samuel. Alashiri says, Oga Benga, I hope you would take one or two words from the icon of broadcast. Try to be objective on issues. I love your program, but at times you fall my hands. Okay. Mr. Bassi says, Mr. Gbenga, your guest is really smart and has a wide knowledge of what is really going on in the media section. That's Bassi. We must appreciate that role of the media and social media because it has also done a lot to correct diverse points and opinions. That's
True,
Mr. Bassi.
true, true.
Thank you so much. Of course, let me also add that the Kogunan is also a PhD student in Abu Zaria. That is almost coming to an end, isn't it?
Yes, yes. I think I'm at the last stages. I have just about 9 months to 1 year to go to complete development communication. And I thank you all for your support. Sometimes even when the stress of the book is too much, I sit back and I watch Focus Nigeria, and the level of the guests and the interaction with the guests, it doesn't matter how brilliant you think you are, you learn from a lot of guests. It doesn't, what you are going through is school too. Yeah. Sitting down to do morning ride for all the years I did, I learned a lot. When you're talking to Idika Kalu this morning, Oliko Ransom Kuti the next morning, Taisho Larin the next morning, Wale Shoyinka the next day, Abdulwan Mohammed, governor of Borno State another day, Raji Rasaki the next day. It's a learning curve. And I congratulate you for a job well done. Irrespective of whatever anybody says, Benga, you have moved from that slightly active, activist of those days to a more refined, constructive critic that is adding a lot to national development through this program.
What do I do? I should just take a bow. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Our guests today have been none other than Malam Danladi Bako, Officer of the Order of Niger ON, the Kogunan Sokoto, former Director General National Broadcasting Commission, former Commissioner for Information in Sokoto State as well, and a PhD student, almost getting to the end of that in Abu Zaria. Thank you, sir. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for investing your time with us this morning. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. My name is Benga.